This is Fairy Gardens 3 Ways. Hi, I'm Suzanne from Spartanburg County Public Libraries, and today I and my coworker John are going to show you how to make 3 different types of fairy gardens. First though, I want to show you some of my favorite books on the subject. We've got Terrarium by Anna Bauer and Noam Levy. It's got some great ideas in there. We've also got Magical Miniature Gardens and Homes by Donnie Weber, and Tiny World Terrariums by Michelle Incirano and Katie Maslow. And as you can see, these are just chock full of good ideas and inspiration and tips for keeping your plants healthy. So I would recommend coming to the library to check those out. Alright, so our first project is the No-Grow Fairy Garden. We're going to start out with a shallow clear container and some vase fillers that I found at a craft store. You can get them in a variety of colors and textures. And these accessories I picked up at a local dollar store. You don't have to go expensive. We got some fake succulents, no green thumb required. Also got these beautiful little mossy stones that I'm going to put in a little later. And this is the best part. We 3D printed this fairy furniture in our own Spark space. So we've got a little bridge and a bench and these tiny little toadstool mushrooms. And as you can see, I have super glued a brad to the bottom of each one, and that's to secure them down in the substrate so that they don't topple over when we put them in. And also we got some crushed blue glass vase filler, and that's going to be our water. Alright, so let's get started. First we're going to do a layer of the larger pebbles just to fill up that container a little bit. I love all the different colors and textures of these pebbles, and the great thing is that because this is a clear container, you're going to be able to see all that through the sides a little bit. So I'm just going to smooth this out, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like from the side. There we go. Alright, next we're going to do a layer of, it's not quite sand, you can see it's a little coarser than sand, but sort of the same texture, and we're just going to pour that right over. A lot of wonderful textures and sensory experiences with this project, so smaller kids are going to love it. Just make sure that everything you use is non-toxic if you're working with little ones. Also be careful to watch out for those choking hazards. I know some of our little mushrooms could be choked on if you're not careful. Alright, so now I'm going to take this lid, and it was actually part of the vase filler container, but I decided to repurpose it and turn it into a lake. And there are no rules for fairy gardens. You can landscape however you want, and this is just what I chose to do, but you are free to use your imagination, and the sky's the limit for this. And as you can see, some of the stones came up from the bottom when I nestled that down in there. I didn't quite expect that to happen, but we're just going to embrace it. I really like the way it makes a nice little border around my lake, so I'm just going to tidy that up a little bit. Alright, and now we're going to fill up that well with our crushed blue glass, and now it's going to really start to look like we're making something special. I love the way that it sparkles. And I think I actually want to do a little river leading to the lake. So I'm going to move some of these pebbles at the mouth of the lake, and we're going to make a waterfall and a little stream. Now this isn't a science, you just do it however you want, and perfection is not the goal. Just having fun and making something beautiful is the goal. So as you can see, I'm not being too tidy with my glass, but it still looks nice. Okay, now it's time for the fun part. We're going to add in our succulents. So we've got some foliage growing along our lake for the fairies to enjoy. I'm going to put our little bench looking over the water so they can sit and contemplate and relax from their fairy day. And then here's a little footbridge for them to cross over the water if they need to. Now for the toadstools, you can make one big fairy ring, but I decided to split it up into several little clusters. So I'm going to put a few over here, and then a few over by the bench. And as you can see, those brads that are super glued to the bottom are really helping to secure them down in that sand. So I would definitely recommend doing that when you get yours from the library. Okay, now here are our little moss stones for a pop of green, and to me they look like fairy-sized bushes. I think I want one more on the other side, so I'm going to move my succulents up out of the way a little bit just to make room. And we are almost finished. The final touch is going to be our welcome sign. We're going to just nestle that in there, and we have finished our beautiful no-grow fairy garden. If you like this project, come pick up a kit from our Spark Space. It contains the items featured here.
Hey everyone, my name is John. I'm working with Suzanne on our Fairy Garden Terrarium program. I'm going to be showing you how to make a potted herbs and succulents fairy garden. So we're going to start out by going through the different materials that we're going to be using to complete our fairy garden today. We've got our pot, and you can see the holes that we've cut for drainage. We've got river pebbles that we're going to be using to help with the drainage. We've got our potting soil we're going to be using for our succulents and herbs. Decorative pebbles, decorative sand, decorative glass shards. We've got sapphires that we're going to be using. They're going to add a nice, pretty, sort of magical effect later on in the project. We've got our welcome fairy sign to let them know that they're welcome to come in, that this is their space. This is going to be our fairy house. That's going to be the centerpiece of the garden once we get it up and ready. These are going to be the different types of plants that we're using. We've got herbs and succulents are the two main types. All right, we're going to start with our river rock. So the first thing we're going to do is they're going to be placed in the bottom. They're going to act as a drainage system for the pot. So you're just going to want to fill the bottom of the pot up with the river rocks. Not too high, maybe a third of the way. Just to kind of help with the drainage of the pot when we put the water in, and that's going to be better for the roots once we get our plants put in. Next, we're going to add in our potting soil over the rocks, and we're going to start pouring that in. And the way that we're going to do it, there's a line around the rim of the top of the bowl, and that's going to be kind of our guide for how high we need to make it. We're going to smooth that out, put in a little bit more, just try and cover that line, make everything look nice and neat. Okay, so now we're going to put the house in the middle. I want to try and put a little bit of soil just around the edge, just so it sort of blends in with the terrain. That's just the way that I like to do things. You don't have to do it this way. Okay, now we're going to add in some of the decorative stones just around the edge of the house. You can't really see it too good from this angle. It's going to pull back shortly, and you'll just kind of see what I'm doing. But I'm making a pathway from the front door to the outer edge of the pot. And I'm taking some of the river rocks that we had left over from our drainage, and we're going to be kind of adding those around the sides to sort of fence that in. It's going to give it a nice clean profile and help keep our rocks together. All right, now we're going to do a panoramic shot just so you can see all the way around the house how it looks. I think that turned out pretty nice. I'm pretty pleased with how this went. All right, now we're going to start putting in some of the plants. Now, something I realized that, pro tip, you probably want to put the plants in before you start doing this nice decorative exercise with the stones. It worked out fine for me, but it's just going to be a little bit easier to pot them. Just something to keep in mind as you go forward with your own project. Putting a terrarium fairy garden together is kind of a journey of discovery, and that's something I kind of figured out on mine. All right, we're getting our succulents and our herbs put in. So Got some nice foliage coming up, spread around the house. Things are looking nice. Going to go ahead and put our sign in. That seems like a good spot for it. Okay, next we're going to kind of dig out a space. We're going to make a little pool, and for this we're going to use some of those blue shards that I showed you earlier. That's going to substitute water for our pool area. And then we are going to take some more of those river rocks, and we're just going to put them around the edge. It creates a nice line that kind of keeps the rocks together, and it helps define it a little bit more. Fantastic. So also, I'm taking some of our sapphires now, and we're putting them around the edge along with another succulent. You're going to see the sapphires pop up again later. Now you'll notice there's an empty space right here on the right hand side of the pot. I'm going to dig out a small portion right here, and we're going to add something a little different to it. It might seem like the same thing that we did with the pool. It's going to be a little bit different though. We're going to put in some of that white sand. We're going to create the ring around it. My idea for this is it's kind of like a play area for the fairies, and we're going to add in some of those sapphires, and the idea here is that they might use the sapphires kind of like toys, like balls for games and things. And it creates a nice little bit of contrast with the pool on the other side, so you're not duplicating yourself. Now we're just going to go in, add some rocks, tidy things up, make sure things look neat. And I think we're in a good place. We're gonna do a turn so you can see all angles of the garden. All right, I think that turned out pretty nice, guys. I'm really pleased with it. Hopefully the fairies will be too. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you guys do when you put your videos together.
For our final project today, we're going to be doing a closed terrarium woodland fairy garden. And I'm going to start with a clean glass jar. I got this one at a thrift store, so there's no need to spend big if you don't want to. We're going to use some pebbles again. We're going to use some horticultural charcoal, and that's going to keep everything nice and fresh down in our terrarium because there's not any drainage in there, so we need that in there to keep the mold and mildew from growing. And here I have some plants that I gathered from a local foresty area. You can get them from your backyard or from anyone's land with their permission, of course, but I've got some lichen that I got together and also a few little mosses. So we are going to see how they like terrarium life. They should like it. They like humidity. And I've got some cut up pine needles and pine bark because I found all of this growing in sort of a foresty pine forest area, so I wanted it to be like it was still at home. Now this is plastic with a bunch of holes poked in it. You'll see what that's for a little bit later. And of course we have to have our furniture. Here is a picnic bench, and we've got a tiny fairy fence that I'm going to show you in just a moment. Here it is. And the mushrooms also come with this kit if you come pick them up at our Spark Space, but I'm not going to use the mushrooms today. I just didn't have room. They weren't to my taste for this project, so I'm going to leave them out, but you're going to get them if you come to the Spark Space to pick up this kit. All right, let's begin. I'm going to start out by putting a layer of pebbles in the bottom of the container. That's going to help drain the water away from the roots of the plants and keep the roots from rotting. And then over top of that, we're going to put this sheet of plastic. Like I said, it's a grocery bag poked full of holes, cut into a circle. You can also use weed blocking cloth, but this is just going to keep the soil from seeping down in between the stones and making it muddy. It's going to make that nice, clean, layered look. And it's also going to allow the water to drain through. All right, next we're going to do a layer of our charcoal. And this is my first time using the charcoal in a terrarium, so I'm excited to see the effect. I think I'm going to put a good amount in there. Just cover the bottom. I'm going to show you how much I put in just a second. Let's smooth it out. There we go. So that is going to keep everything nice and fresh and absorb the impurities that might crop up in there. And then this is just potting soil I'm going to put on top. Moss don't really need very much soil to grow down into, but the fern is going to have to need something to sink its roots into. So I'm just going to spread that out. Now it's time to put in our plants, so I'm going to make a little nest in the potting soil for our fern. And then I'm going to gently just transfer it in there. We're going to just get it situated a little bit. We don't want to pack down the soil too tightly, but just sort of neaten things up and get it straight. Now down in this container I've got little chips of pine bark that I found near to where the fern was growing, and I'm going to put that and some of the pine needles and moss around, and soon we're going to have a lovely woodland scene taking form. I love the cute little lichens in this piece of moss. They're shaped like little cups for the fairies to drink out of course. And I found out as I was learning more about this project that lichens are actually not a plant. They are a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and an algae. So the great thing about a closed terrarium is it's a little ecology lesson. The water sort of simulates its own water cycle because it will evaporate up to the top of the glass container, and then it'll cool down, and that condensation will then sort of drip down like rain. So it's a great just mini ecosystem that you can have on your kitchen table and observe. Now I'm going to put in some of these chopped up pine needles. I love the texture of these. And I'm going to speed up the video just a little bit so you don't have to watch me fiddling with it for too long. I also found a tiny pine cone that I'm going to put in there as an accent piece. Getting it all in there. There we go. And there's my pine cone. Isn't it cute? Alright, now it is time for our fairy furniture. So let's snuggle that little picnic table down in there, and the fairies can have their picnic in there. Looks like a little state park. And I'm going to put the fences along the edge of the container because I think they'll be a little bit more visible there from the side. And in just a moment I'm going to turn this around so you can see it better. Here's the side view. There we go. So we've got our nice little purple fence. There's some lichen. I'm going to snuggle that down in there. And for this last part, there's the view from the side. Now this part is important. We've got to water our plants. So I'm using distilled water because I don't want any chlorine or any other kinds of impurities getting into the jar, since it is going to be recycling the same water over and over. So we're just a little bit drowned at the moment, but I promise it will recover shortly. Ferns do like moisture, so both ferns and mosses are well suited for terrarium, closed terrarium image. Now here I have, this is the fun part. You don't have to put these guys in, but these are little roly-polies. They're Detritivores, and I know you might be squeamish at the idea of having bugs in your terrarium, but they actually are not insects. They are crustaceans. They're more closely related to lobsters and crabs than they are to any other kind of insect that you might see in your garden. They've got 14 legs instead of 7, and they love to eat rotting foliage. Anything that might get moldy in your terrarium is what they're going to eat. So they are the cleanup crew. And right now they are not happy about getting off my damp paper towel. They love moisture because they're so closely related to all those sea creatures. They too really enjoy a moist environment. So I'm just going to gently transfer them into their new home, and they're going to be my cleanup crew. And there we have our closed terrarium garden. Thank you so much for watching our fairy garden 3 ways video today. And if you would like to make your own fairy garden, we do have some of this purple furniture available at the Spark Space at the headquarters library for you to come pick up. We 3D printed it out just for you. And the first 30 people will get a bag, and if you aren't one of the first 30, you are welcome to put in an order for one of our 3D printers, and we'll print you out some more.